See, so I mentioned the sweaty palms moments, my own pretty bad term for that experience for pro athletes, but you worked with the Indians and still do in some capacity, but you were full-time there running that program for how many years? Like, you were there a long time, right?
6 years, yeah.
And so over the course of that 6 years, can you share with, like, when you think of a mission critical operator, as Coleman's just described it, like what scenario jumps out to you? The Cleveland Indians looking at an athlete or maybe even a coach where you're like, yeah, that's really where mission critical comes into it for a Major League Baseball player.
I think there are a lot of moments. If you think about every reliever stepping on the field, your best relievers get put in positions where they're in men scoring position and they are brought in for a brief period of time, maybe one pitch, maybe they get two guys out, but they're there to strike people out. They have one mission. They know they're coming in for it. They know there's pressure. You certainly can't get off the mound once you're on. You are at the center of a stadium with 40,000 fans, and it's time for you to deliver. And I think that's true even for the starter that in the fifth inning all of a sudden gets a bomb hit off him. And, he's just has given up a 2-run home run and the game's changed momentum. And how is he going to respond? And the ball comes back to his hand and he's got to respond right there. Clearly not the same as life or death, but I think what gets interesting is when you look at some of the physiology, you're seeing very similar physiological states and reactions. The hitter that's stepping up in the bottom of the ninth and wants to bring it home for their team. Those pressure moments exist. I think you're right. We had a great initiative when I was up with the Indians where we brought Special Forces Green Beret families up to throw out a first pitch and hang out with their guys a little bit so that they could tell those stories to each other. And I think for the baseball players, it was pretty amazing perspective. One of the side notes that I also liked for the baseball players was that you could watch a Green Beret get nervous to throw out a first pitch. And it kind of brought home that these amazing soldiers that can tell you about stories and places you'd never want to go, they get nervous too. And they would range walk. They would fast move off that mound after throwing off that pitch. They couldn't wait to get out from the center of that ballpark. And, it gives you appreciation. We all get stressed. We all get nerves. We all get sweaty palms and, it's just handling it and moving forward.
It's one of the rare occurrences where you'll actually get someone's hero who their hero is the person who's the hero. It's almost a reciprocal heroosity, whatever the word is there, because the athletes look up to the soldiers and the soldiers are just so happy to be in the locker room with these athletes that they love. It's a very rare and unique and special thing. You mentioned physiology. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say one of my favorite moments was that the kids of the soldiers very rarely realized that people would look at their father as a hero. And so when the players were saying how much they respected and were thankful for their dad, it was kind of a shocked face on the kid who was getting baseball autographs. But I always loved it. I thought it was the most kind of badass moment of the whole thing.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. You both mentioned physiology. I just had an experience of physiology as you were describing that, Cece, where I got little goosebumps. Things happen to us that sometimes we're aware of, sometimes we're not, but particularly under these amazing, unique environments. Like you said, some of them you don't want to go to. I would not want to be in Fallujah. Some of them you do want to go to. Yankee Stadium sounds pretty cool. But they both produce similar physiological events within us. And so let's start with you, Ceci, in terms of your work with Major League Baseball players. Like, how do you firstly bring about awareness? It's probably a little bit easier because they're feeling it, but help them gain some sense of control over how to handle that on the biggest stage.
There's a lot of bad information put out about nerves, about physiology, about what you should feel and about how it should look. And so I think one of the biggest things working with pro athletes was normalizing what people would feel and also trying to put out accurate information. So information like butterflies mean you're not ready, or when your mouth goes dry, you should start to panic, or when your hand's shaking, it's because you're a wuss. But in fact, all those physiological components are your body readying itself for a big moment. And they're good. They're all good for you if you don't fight them, if you can accept them, if you understand them. And so I think there's a lot of myths around performance that do athletes injustice or do any performer an injustice. And the other thing I think is people don't tend to talk about them. So I remember a baseball coach looking at me in shock when I told him that I would call pitchers that were going to be brought up to the major leagues. And I would tell them that they might not feel their hands or their feet or their legs during their debut, their major league debut. And he was like, "You tell them that?" And absolutely, I do, because I don't want them to think that they are wrong or messed up or don't have a right to be on that mound when it happens. And it's going to happen to them. They all describe it in retrospect. So if I can describe that to a player early on, and if he's up on that mound and he's pitching and he goes, I can't feel my hand. Oh, yeah, she told me that was going to happen. No big deal. Keep pitching. Great. We're going to perform through all kinds of uncomfortable states. I think there's this myth that you should feel in the zone. There's this myth that it's going to be a great day. There's a myth that you're going to feel ready. We feel all kinds of things when we perform. And so just creating that acceptance around it. And your job in some ways is to accept where you're currently at and then compete wherever you're currently at with whatever you currently have. And so I think myth busting and then also honest expectation and acceptance. That
is an interesting and very counterintuitive insight that I tried to lead you in a trap there, that you clearly, as a veteran, avoided it, because it's less about, as you're saying there, part of it is like some control strategies and techniques, or like an ability to reroute physiology. But it's not all about control. Some of it is like, this is just what happens to your body when you're doing cool shit.